No one pays much attention to the ordinary until they restore democracy, feed the hungry, save the seas, or protect the dignity of a people. For how can one see greatness in the unassuming, the soft-spoken, the frail, or the humble, if it's measured by the usual yardstick of success? The man whose name now bears Asia's most prestigious award seemed ordinary by all means, except that even as a mechanic, he already had the sense to improve the lives of his fellow men. What is it about ordinary men and women who turn their back on a comfortable life so they can clean up oceans and light up villages? How can they know that what they fight for will make governments sit up and listen? What moves these ordinary people to do extraordinary things? It's called greatness of spirit. It is celebrated every 31st of August by the Ramon Magsaysay Awardee Foundation as a fitting homage to the legacy of the Philippine president who was once called Man of the Masses. He believed that the little man is entitled to a little bit more of everything, and that no one's dignity should ever be compromised. Today, over 300 ordinary men and women have displayed the same conviction and courage to transform society, and thus have been honored with the Ramon Magsaysay Award. For protecting fundamental human rights, for encouraging the poor to become asset creators, or for just playing music that colors the mind. And while the award can boost ordinary men and women to celebrity, many of the winners use it to enable them to work much harder for the communities they serve, because they know that the award is not about them, but about the solutions they make. That's how ordinary men and women become extraordinary.
You drink it, you cook with it, you use it every day. But for 1 in 4 people, clean water isn't on tap. Instead, it's a long walk, a heavy load, a health risk. As cities grow, water sources shrink, rivers run dry, wells go deeper, and unpredictable floods, droughts, and storms are hitting hardest when life is already tough. Everyone is affected, but those with the least lose the most. It's time for us to act and to listen to science, to nature, and to the voices of those living in scarcity. The Fair Water exhibit shows how each of us, like a single drop, can ripple outward and become waves of change. Discover research, expert talks, powerful stories, and artworks that will inspire action towards a fair water future. Fair water? Let's make it a reality. Visit the free exhibit at Ayala Museum from May 28 to August 28, 2025.
To officially open today's Fair Water Talk, may we call on Ramon Magsaysay Awardee Foundation President, Ms. Susan Afan.
Lakasan niyo naman ang konti. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's so wonderful talaga to see each and every one of you, because I'm sure there was a lot of effort made this morning to wake up. Although I looked outside my window this morning and there was already the sunshine nawala pa. But as we all know, that's what water is all about, It is unpredictable, and just like water, we just go with the flow. Okay? So thank you. Maraming salamat for being here with us today. So as you all know, behind every drop of water we use is a vast network of people, places, systems, and stories. Pipes and pumps, but also planners, engineers, teachers, caretakers, and entire communities working, often unseen, to make sure that something so basic and so human as water remains available, clean, and justly shared. At the Ramon Magsaysay Award Foundation, we honor the kind of quiet, committed service that uplifts and restores dignity. We believe that greatness of spirit is found not just in grand gestures, but in everyday acts of responsibility and care of the community. Maynilad is one of them. I can see many of you in blue here. I know that you're one of our quiet heroes, that's working behind the scenes each and every day to provide us the good water that comes out of our faucets. Another such individual is Sonam Wangchuk, 2018 Ramon Magsaysay Awardee from India. He's an engineer and educator from Ladakh. If you will take a look at if you will Google Ladakh, you will find out that it's a mountainous region where water is scarce and seasons are extreme. So it's either very, very, very cold or very, very hot and dry. Faced with the disappearing snow line and farmers struggling to irrigate their fields, Sonam Wangchuk looked to nature and innovation for answers. He created ice stupas. Have you heard of ice stupas before? Anybody here? No? Okay, when you later on, you check it out. It's really unbelievable, okay? Ice stupas are artificial glaciers built to store winter meltwater and slowly release it when it's most needed in the spring. It is a simple idea with transformative impact. You see, because they live in such high mountainous regions, it's really farmers taking the risk to go down the mountain to bring water up. And so people have died just trying to get water. Can you imagine that? And because of this wonderful innovation, it's truly been transformative to their community. But his work lies not only in science and engineering. Through SECMOL, SECMOL, that is his organization, the Students' Educational and Cultural Movement of Ladakh, he reimagined what learning could look like, grounding lessons in local knowledge, environmental wisdom, and the belief that education must serve the needs of both the students and the community. Today, we gather for a conversation surrounding the spirit of engaged learning as and with the community, particularly with water. On how we understand, protect, and teach others about this very essential source. And more importantly, how do we do this together, especially with young people? I can see so many wonderful young faces, and it truly invigorates me when I see young people's faces joining us in these kinds of conversations. But, because you are the people that will really shape the future. And I say this all the time, and sometimes, parang kawawa naman the young people, everything na lang is in their shoulders. Everything na lang is put to them, Parang our generation did medyo pumalpak yung generation namin in trying to create all of these great systems, and now it's all in your hands. But today, we're going to be joined actually by a mixed group of people, okay? Young, not so young, old, and not very old, okay? And this inspiring mix of people from different fields will try and work together and create unique angles of how to attack the problem. First one, too, is from Oxford University, Dr. Katrina Charles. She will guide us through her mission to bridge the gap between advances in science and engineering and people's understanding of these systems. This journey has led her to become one of the brilliant minds behind the Fair Water exhibit, which was first launched in the University of Oxford. So for those of you that have not seen it, please go see it after the after the talk. But Dr. Katrina Charles from Oxford was the brains behind all of this. And she was here last week. She was supposed to speak. She flew all the way from London, and siya ay nabaha, and unfortunately, as we said, we go by the flow. But aside from Manila, napunta na tayo sa London, back to Manila tayo. We also have today, nag-India pa nga pala tayo with Sonam Wangchuk. So back to Manila, we also have with us today somebody that I just met this morning and who I would love to get to know more in the months and years ahead is Mr. Jonel Rabusa. Jonel, stand up, show yourself. From the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, Museo el Deposito. And at first I was like, kasama ba to sa Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas kasi Deposito. Mali. He will actually take us back in time through the deep history of Manila's water systems, reminding us the story of water is also the story of our cities, our struggles, and our resilience. Whoever knew? I didn't even know that there was such a museum. Dennis, alam mo ba yan? Buti na lang si Dennis, alam niya yan. Okay, so later, I will also introduce you to Dennis because if you have guests that want to see more of the Philippines and want to know more about the history, he's the guy that you should get to know. So this morning, of course, we are joined by our wonderful partners from Maynilad, who manage one of the largest water systems in our country. And again, I want to say how grateful I am to Maynilad. Can I please have all the Maynilad people stand up and take a bow? Because without you, this 12 weeks would never have happened. So, spearheaded by Rosmond this morning, and stand up, Maynilad. All the people in blue yata, say hello, wave. You are the Maynilad people. Today is your day. Okay? All right. Yan. Today is the Maynilad Day, actually, at the Ayala Museum. And I'm a little bit sad because last week was their day, and that was the big storm. We had over 800 people from Maynilad apparently coming here to the Ayala Museum. Pero ngayon naging less than half na lang because of obviously prior commitment. So I want you to all text, pakita niyo yung mga pictures natin na masaya tayo dito kahit na umuulan para pumunta sila. Kasi, when do you see all of these wonderful exhibits? It's not all the time that you get this chance. So I hope that people still think about it and come. So they will share, our Maynilad partners will share their work on reducing water loss, on managing demand, and building a generation of water stewards through the Maynilad Water Academy. What a wonderful presentation they also did a week or two ago. O yun na ba yung oras ko na sabihin tama na? Okay. Talagang tong team ko, talagang kailangan Okay, all of the Maynilad people and all of us that are here present today, in our own ways, are asking one another as to how we can look at water not just as a passive resource, but as a shared responsibility that we should hold one another on. So before we begin, it is my honor to introduce a special message from Sonam Wangchuk, who also was supposed to fly to Manila. Okay, we had his ticket, everything was taken care of, and wala. Because naman, nobody wants to get a bumpy ride to get into Manila, maulan, and then a bumpy ride outside of Manila again for a few days. So, but he was so gracious enough to give us a wonderful message. And he is a pioneer in his field, and his leadership, which is so needed in the region, unfortunately, made him stay in the country. Thus, his absence in today's session. So, in his work, we see not only science, but compassion, which is so badly needed. Not only systems, but spirit. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's begin the morning by hearing the message from Sonam Wangchuk of India.
Hi and good morning and Jule as we greet in Ladakh. I connect to you from the heights of Himalayas and happy to be meeting you all in Manila at the Fair Water Talks. I'll share with you the story of struggles in the high Himalayan cold deserts beyond the Himalayas where every drop is so important. The whole world needs to realize the value of water, but out here in this desert, people have always realized the value of water, but it is becoming more and more challenging now. Before I go on this picture story to share with you how we are doing, what we are doing, I thought I'll give you an idea of where I am and what it means to be here so that you can get a better idea. So here I'll share my screen and share with you some images. So the map shows where I am, top north of India, high up in the mountains, not in the Himalayas but beyond the Himalayas. We are said to be in the Trans-Himalayas, and there's a world of difference between Himalayas and Trans-Himalayas. Himalayas is lush green like Kashmir, but across the Himalayas it's a different story. Nature has left us high and dry. It's a total desert, a cold desert. And every morning when I open my windows, it looks more like Mars or a moon rather than planet Earth even. I'll take you on a picture story. So let me show you what I see outside my window. Not this one. This one actually is a picture of planet Mars. Just to give you a comparison for what I do see outside my window every morning. Here, this is what I see, and you will see that it's not so different from the previous picture, except for the human touch there with buildings and some clouds in the skies. Well, we are closest to outer space than most places on the planet Earth, 3,500 meters close to outer space, or 11,500 feet altitude, where the temperature fluctuations can show that it is like outer space, from plus 35 in summer to minus 35 in winters. That's how Ladakh is. But despite all this harshness of climate, people have not only survived, but a whole colorful civilization has thrived with its own language, literature, music, dance, and spirituality. But today we are facing bigger challenges than before. With global warming, our glaciers, which are the only source of water for us, as we don't have any rains hardly, are melting away very fast, and they are causing, of course, droughts, but even floods. Let's see how. This part of the world is considered as the third pole after North and South Pole. You know, you have this picture here taken by me from an aircraft. In this one frame, you can see 10 glaciers. Roughly 50,000 glaciers are there in this Hindu Kush Himalayas, and it supports the lives of roughly 2 billion people, 1/4 of the planet's population, directly or indirectly. But these glaciers are now melting very fast. Let's go closer to one of these glaciers. Here, this glacier is melting very fast. It used to be 20 years ago tall, and I would strain my neck watching it. But now it's a shadow of itself. And at the bottom end, the snout of the glacier, you see every summer a whole torrent coming out, gushing out, which means all the water is going fast to the ocean, causing floods on the way. And every other year there is droughts because water washes away and then there's very little to come by. Now, amidst all this, we at our school have been struggling to find solutions rather than sit hand on hand. So at this school called the Secmol Alternative School, where often people say the admission criteria is failure in exams rather than marks, we accept all the failures of the system and together with them learn hands-on and apply what we learn to solving real life problems. And with this approach, even those who have failed become bright stars because it's more natural to learn hands-on. So this school for the last 35 years has been carbon neutral, ecologically very, very friendly, planet friendly. We use mud or earth to build the buildings and sun for powering and heating the buildings. We don't use any fossil fuels and have been carbon neutral. This school is also run by the students themselves and they apply what they learn to solve real life problems in their surroundings. Now let me show you that at this school, most of our energy comes from the sun, from cooking to greenhouse to grow vegetables in winters, to lighting, to electricity, water heating, water pumping. Even cows live in solar heated cow sheds. And the students apply their chapter in physics to build houses that will keep them warm in winters without polluting the environment. So in physics you have conduction, convection, radiation, in heat, all that applied, and students design and build together with grown-ups the school buildings that then stay at plus 18 in these polar winters when outdoors it is minus 20 without burning a drop of fuel. And thanks to a little bit of geography which tells us where the sun and earth are in winter and summer, these buildings are also the coolest in summer. Now, like this environmental challenge, we started solving the challenge of water in this cold desert some 10 years ago. Together with my students, we said, as our natural glaciers are melting away, how about building man-made glaciers by freezing the water in the streams in winter when nobody is farming and goes waste, and keeping it till summer. People laugh, because winter ice melts by March in spring. How can you keep it till May or June? We thought of many ways because it's the sun that melts ice in March. So how about shading it? The Swiss do use fleece to cover their ski resorts, but we can't afford that. So to our help came geometry lessons from our high school students. And in geometry, certain shapes have low surface area for the given volume, like sphere, hemisphere, and even cones. Low surface area because we don't want the sun to melt it, and high volume because we want the farmers to have more water. So we said we should freeze our ice in conical shapes, like you see there. It's in a roughly conical shape. But then if you have to build giant cones or pyramids, it's easier said than done. You need huge pumps to pump water 12 stories high, and it's not easy. Pumps not affordable and very polluting. So we said, how about using what we have? And to our help came middle school science, physics, which says that water always maintains its level. That's why masons put water in a pipe to check levels. So we said we have an upstream in the mountains and a downstream. If we put a pipe upstream and bring it downstream where water is needed, then the water inside the pipe wants to go to the inlet level at the outlet, and there'll be a pressure in the pipe to do that. And if we put a fountain against that pressure, then it will behave as if there is a pump. And this is what you find without any pump. Sorry about that. rushes into the air, into the -20 air, and that drops down and freezes to make a cone of ice like you see. This is all without any power, any fuel, any pollution. Now, then we saw on this pilot project that the ice actually lasts much longer. Not in March, but till June the ice here lasted. And these conical ice shapes we called ice stupas, named after sacred monuments of mud that are called stupas, so that it's close to people's hearts. And these ice stupas lasted in June. It was still 2 stories tall, and you can see here as they slowly melt, the water is collected in tanks, and then using drip irrigation techniques, we tested out the concept by planting 5,000 trees with the villagers. So 5,000 trees survived in a desert that has never seen any greenery, thanks to these ice stupas. Now the community has always been a part of all these efforts, and the villagers have always helped. This is a typical village here, where the villagers are helping bury the pipes underground, because it's very cold and they'll freeze if they are kept exposed. So they are putting earth. Monks from the monasteries come and help. There are problems like pipes breaking, fountains freezing, midnight in -20, and yet slowly the ice stupas start forming, and ice rises, and finally it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stories of ice cones, and then people of course celebrate. And this has now gone beyond our school to villages, where young people build these ice stupas. They have even competitions to build ice stupas. Here in this picture you see a cascade of ice stupa artificial glaciers. The person in the middle you can see, for reference of size, that's how big they are, often 12 stories, 14 stories tall. And here it's going global from Ladakh. The one here is built by villagers, very big, holds 12 million liters of water at 120 feet tall. And then different parts of Ladakh and neighboring countries like Pakistan, Nepal started building. Then in Switzerland you can see, in the Alps people started building ice stupas. Now as I speak, our team has gone to Chile in South America, where they're building ice stupas for them. So it's growing slowly to the world, and apart from a solution for water, it's a message to value every drop of water. It may not be relevant to you in a warm place like Philippines, but what these people in the mountains do to conserve every drop of water, in the middle of winter, they struggle, can tell the world how valuable every drop of water is. And this, I would say, is not really the end. The journey is still long, and I'll keep it here and look forward to meeting you all sometime and have discussions. Thank you very much, and have a great seminar. All the very best. I greet you and thank you all from everybody in Ladakh.
Okay, so we're in Manila, napunta tayo sa India. Okay, konting break before we go to the United Kingdom. Okay? But if you saw, di ba tayo dito, ice sculpture, yan ang ginagawa natin sa Paete, pero ganda-ganda ng ice sculpture, tapos pag nag-melt na, wala na. So at least ito, imagine it holds 12 million gallons of water, and it helps so many farmers. So again, it's innovation, and community building is very big, because you have to, can you imagine the work that needed to get done in order to make that happen? But if there's also one thing that I think I would like to make sure that everybody knows today, is how to pronounce. Kasi most of the time, di ba, Himalayas tayo, o Himalayan, o but I was corrected, and maybe if there's anything that we learned today, it's really pronounced Himalayan. Himalayan. Okay, so yan ang tamang pag-pronounce ko ano yung Himalayan, it's Himalayan, is how they say it in India. Oh, at least meron tayong konti, meron tayong pabaon, di ba? Oh, sige. Okay, so from Manila to India, now we go to London. So now we're going to have we have an introduction, Simone? Go ahead.
We are grateful for Mr. Wangchuk's insights and his inspiring contributions to his communities and the field of science and engineering as a whole. As Ms. Susan said, he could not join us today, though originally he was meant to fly to the Philippines to give his message in person. His scientific genius is made only more significant by his efforts in education, promoting learning rooted in culture, innovation rooted in exploration. Our next speaker joining us, who cannot join us anymore through Zoom as she got a cold after being here during the rain and the storm last weekend. But she has prepared a special video presentation for us. Katrina Charles is a professor of environmental health risks at the University of Oxford. She began her career as an environmental engineer in Sydney, researching ways to protect the city's drinking water. Since moving to the UK, she has focused on water safety in low and middle income countries, designing programs for school and healthcare facilities, including Bangladesh. In 2022, she began developing the Fair Water exhibition with the Oxford University Museum of Natural History, based on water security and research.
Hi, thanks for joining us today. Sorry I can't be there in person or live, but it's a real pleasure to be here, and so thanks very much to the Ayala Museum, Ramon Magsaysay Awardee Foundation, and of course our partners at Asian Development Bank for the opportunity to speak today on this session around water and communities. I wanted to start to just share some of the work I've been doing through a little video. So let me share that, and then I will talk you through more about how the Fair Water exhibition has been developed to help share the research and why we've developed this exhibition. So enjoy the video.
Normally, as academics, we write papers, we cross our fingers that somebody reads them and somebody takes up on the findings. REACH was very different in terms of how it was structured and thought about, an outcome-based program to improve water security to 10 million poor people in Africa and Asia. On our own, we wouldn't actually achieve the outcome. And so we knew that we had to form partnerships, particularly with government, and also with UNICEF that we've worked with globally, regionally, and in national offices, and then a host of other partners in countries as well, and to co-design the program in a way that it aligned with government's priorities, that we couldn't develop research, drop it on a desk 3 years later and hope that answered their question. We had to understand what their questions were.
With REACH, we've been able to have impact on people's lives. We'll be able to implement models and inform policy and practice in a way that's going to make a difference for people on the ground. It's not just going to be written down somewhere and lost. We're seeing this making change.
As researchers, we work with people, the people who are interacting with the pollution or the people who are facing these water security challenges in their day-to-day lives. It's very fulfilling for us as researchers to see the data that we get from these people, to bring those data up to the policymakers sitting at the highest level of government.
And that's the dream of every researcher. It's very rare that research or academic work is taken up by practitioners, especially governments. We are very proud that we have brought about this collaboration, bridging the gap between science and policy.
Being able to go out into the field, go out to visit these rural areas where the service providers are working and see how the research is changing things. It's action research, right? We're working in partnership with people who are day-to-day engaged with these issues.
I came from the engineering background, and we tend to see things only from the engineering perspective. But from REACH experience, what I see is the importance of integrating different disciplines, looking at water from social side, from the political side, from the climate aspect of it, and from the engineering aspect of it.
What I would say has given me the most pleasure within the research is just the capacity building. We've been able to work with young early career scientists and just being able to mentor them in the water space for them to know how to collect data and to be able to analyze and identify issues and dynamics of water.
You actually need a lot of resources to do the kind of training and skill development that people want, but it's so important for people to be able to actively participate in research themselves. That's the bit that makes me the most excited, is this capacity building and just sort of trying to fill that gap and work together instead of saying, well, I've done research and here's the output, you must implement it.
We developed an exit strategy 18 months before the end of the program, and we try and identify a number of things thematically where we think we're making progress and there's a good case to develop that into the future. And in that, we've identified 3 areas currently around climate systems, so work that we're doing in East Africa in particular, which affects hundreds of millions of people. And there's been major progress in understanding rainfall dynamics, which will help us better understand, predict and manage droughts and floods in the future. Water quality in terms of both groundwater and river water management and how that then benefits society more generally. And then in terms of rural water systems, how we can change the mindset from one of building infrastructure to one of delivering services.
What I am very happy to see is the passion that everyone has to really push this rich program legacy forward. So we don't expect it to die. We expect it to keep on living.
Thanks. So that's just a little bit about the REACH program, which was the research on which the Fair Water exhibition has been developed. So if I just switch now to share a bit of the background to how the exhibition came around. So you've heard about the research we were doing and the different aspects of it, and the video's already highlighted a few of the key points I wanted to pull out in this talk about what's important, why it's important to talk about water security and how we communicate that with people. So the exhibition came about because, as you saw, we've been doing all this research and engaging a lot with policymakers and people who are making decisions on water security. But what we wanted to reach was also the public, to help them to understand the challenges of water security, the situation people are facing in different settings, and the inequalities that are very much part of the challenge in water security. And if we look at how people understand water security, and this is different, what I'm about to say is perhaps a bit different from what I would have said a week ago if before all the recent flooding in Manila. But if we look at how the news often covers water security, especially in excuse me, in the UK, we have a lot of negative aspects. A lot of it is the parts that we need to be concerned about. So here you've got the bottom, people being concerned about bathing water quality, that our rivers are contaminated so we can't swim. We've got a hose pipe ban, so water scarcity issues that's ongoing now for us in the UK. We have concerns the privatisation in the UK. We have issues with Thames Water at the moment, and it's likely to fold, and there's big governance changes happening as a result. And so people are, the public is somewhat angry and upset that that's been allowed to happen. We've got some information here on some floods in South Korea recently, which has also had devastating floods. So, and then one on one of the new challenges that we're seeing on data storage, that the amount of computing we're using is also affecting our water, and that it's going to put more pressure on our limited water resources here and in many places in the world. So we have this very often negative perspective coming across. The news covers disasters. One of the ones from Philippines I did bring out from this week is did share the story, and this reached quite far around the world, of people who were going ahead with their weddings in flooded churches in Manila. So this is in some ways a story of hope that people just kept going, but there's obviously a huge disruption to their lives, and they chose to. It's not ideal to go ahead with a wedding in floodwaters and to wander into floodwaters. But so when this is all the stuff that reaches the news, becomes our understanding of what the water situation is, and it can be is the kind of thing that can upset us and be quite a drain on us emotionally. So with the exhibition, what we wanted to do was to really share the work that was going, share the challenges that people face in water, but make sure that we were leaving people with hope, that people still came away with the idea that it's difficult, but there are ways we can fix this. And so the work we do then is all focused on water security. And so these sorts of media stories are reflecting, I think, this cartoon very nicely, that the idea that water is very much a contested resource is what we would say, is that it's fought over by different people. So here you've got the example of the needs we have for water. So water, of course, for the household, for drinking, for flushing, for cleaning, water for industry, for a lot of our manufacturing, for many other industries. You've got water for, of course, our food. A huge part of food security is the water needed to produce the food. And then, of course, water for energy as well. And I've already highlighted how that's shifting as our energy demands get higher through our data use. So we have this tug of war, and everyone needs water. Everyone needs enough water for their purposes. And the more of us there are, the more people there are, the more our needs change, the more there is this conflict potentially over water, this need to really manage it carefully. But there are two parts that are also missing in this diagram, or in this cartoon. So the first is the ecosystem. So one of the key groups that needs water is our environment. It's the plants, the animals, the ecosystems that also help to look after our water as well. And the second part that's missing is pollution. Because it's not just that we need water in the home, that we use, we're going to use water, it's that we also put water back then that's contaminated, that we pollute it. And so that's the same for each of these sectors. And that means that there's less fresh water, less clean water available for those other sectors. So we can treat it, but it gets increasingly hard to treat water the more contaminated it is. So that's an extra cost, an extra energy cost, an extra monetary cost, an extra time burden to get that water to a standard we can still use. And so this is sort of where the concept of water security comes from, is that it's not just looking at one aspect of this, but trying to look at how that whole system works together. So this is one way that people have brought together those ideas, and I think the one I haven't mentioned already on top of that last diagram was the impact of climate change. So I mentioned, with increasing populations, more people need water. We have more different, more complex uses for water. But we also have less reliable access to water because of climate change. We have more floods, more droughts, leading to these extremes that make it hard for us to access water. So we have that challenge. So water security then is how it is finding that balance where we have the water we need for drinking water, human well-being, we have the water we need for ecosystems, for economic activities and development, and the water-related hazards are managed so that they're not affecting those outcomes. And this diagram also then starts to suggest the bits around it that make that possible. So governance is key. So management, how we manage that water, how we put that in place so that we have ways to make sure people have water when they need it. That we have cooperation across boundaries, so between countries where they might share a water resource, but also that that cooperation is needed within a country. So, for example, that the water for the city and the water for the rural areas, that those agreements are in place so that everyone gets what they need. There's, of course, financing. Money's always important, but we can do a lot with the money we have. And then finally, peace and political stability as well. So these are all aspects of some things we need for water security. There's a lot more that could be mentioned. So one big one is capacity, that we need people who are going to be part of this system, who are going to come and help manage the water, who are going to be the people who solve these problems. And so that is, as was highlighted in the video, there's a lot of different types of people we need to help manage that. And I'll come back to that point. But for me, one of the ironies, I think, in water security is that when we have the people in the world who have the most water security, will be also the ones who probably have a least active role in that. They don't have to worry about water. They're not thinking about water. By delivering that water security, we have, removed a burden from them so that they don't have to worry about it. But by doing that, we've also lost some of the ways to help them value that water security. So it's very easy to take water security for granted when you have it. That, if you're the one who's been flooded and been impacted, you're going to be much more conscious of these things and much more aware of the work that's being done to manage this in the future or not. You'll be much more aware of the forecasting systems and the ways you have to do extra work to make sure you've got what you need in a flood and that you can stay safe. So how do we make sure, well, the challenge then becomes, how do we get people to value all the work that's done to improve water security? You've got this news that's just saying this is bad, this is not happening, this is really difficult. And in some places, certainly that water security may be getting worse in some ways. But also it's getting much more difficult to manage as we have, as I said, bigger populations, different needs for water, and climate pressures on top of that make it more challenging all the time to manage water security and to make sure people have what they need. And so this, as I said, is where this is one of the messages we wanted people to take away from the exhibition, to understand that it's not just physical, an engineering challenge in water as well, because that management, once we just start talking about how water is managed, it's not about the resource, it's not about the engineering, just in that management. But as my colleague Elise Chatard said here, it's for everything that's managed by humans, it becomes a political and an ethical issue. So often we think, okay, it's an engineering, it's a tap. This is not doesn't seem like a political issue. But all the decisions that go before that in terms of who gets that tap, how much does that tap cost? Why do they get it and not someone else? Why is the money being put towards that part of the system and not treatment, for example? These are all, somewhat political decisions that then affect water security for all. And again, this is a picture from Philippines a few years ago, and this will feel a bit of a contrast to the current flooding. This is a drought a few years ago, and that's something where one of the climate challenges, climate hazards that the Philippines is of course coping with as well. And so with droughts and floods, we often focus on the event, the amount of rainfall, what are the climatological aspects of this? What's the weather been? With the exhibition, we want people to take away is that it's, yes, that the climate is changing, it's making it more difficult. But at the end of the day, it's people. It's our management of the water and the landscape that holds the power to create or destroy water security for the people living there. So it's our decisions around what land is built on, what land uses, who gets water, how much water, how do we restrict water and manage that store in the reservoir when we don't know or when we know when there's a forecast that says there might be a drought. How do we try to reduce people's usage? And that's both something that's, these are decisions that are made by people who are working in water utilities, who are working for the government and other places. But it's also something that we all make decisions on every day. So our water use, how long our shower is, how much whether you're watering a garden or washing something, what clothes we buy, where the water comes from for those clothes is part of that decision. So we make decisions ourselves that affect that system. And it's often very difficult to see how those decisions can impact sometimes, but it's important that people understand that they have a role too. So the exhibition is based on the work of the REACH program, and I've already shown you the video, but what I wanted to highlight here is the work on water security addressed lots of different aspects. So here we've got strengthening institutions, so thinking about policies, thinking about laws, thinking about government strategies, and just the way we manage water security was one aspect. We had a program of work on improving water quality management, so thinking both about river pollution, for example, from the garment sector in Bangladesh and industry in Ethiopia, and so looking at how do we improve that water quality in rivers, as well as thinking about drinking water aspects. We had work focusing on climate resilience, so strengthening capacity in terms, so both the science side of new science-based understanding of the climate models, the forecasts, so that we've got better evidence to base this on, but also thinking about who's using that data. And then finally looking at reducing inequalities, so understanding how water security differs both across society, but right down to that within the household, and thinking about within a household, different people are making decisions, how do those decisions differ, for example, between a man and a woman? What's the role of the children where you have a larger family group living together? What are the different roles people have in moving towards water security? So in the video, I highlight that one of the achievements of this program was really having impact, of having changes on policy, on laws, that we have now achieved 10 million people with improved water security across the program. And that has been possible because one of the key things here is the interdisciplinary team, so that we have people who are working together on, of course, engineering, on climate, on hydrogeology, different aspects of water science, but working very closely with economists, with social scientists, with health experts as well. So people working on all different aspects so that we can understand these complex relationships between different aspects. And I think that's one of the key things we need in water security, is that we need all different types of people working together. So when we put the exhibition together, it wasn't, I think, one of the key things we're thinking about was, how do we communicate change? I already mentioned this. For climate, we'd been thinking about not just the climate data we need, but how do we make sure people are using it when they make decisions? So we did research looking at who uses this decision making, or who uses these tools. If you're looking at water management across the Philippines, for example, who actually uses climate forecasts and understands how to adapt to climate change? Is it just at the national level and a national plan, or is it something that's really it's really understood by people who are, for example, operating a reservoir and who might need to understand the forecast to make decisions on when to release water and when to store water. So those, making sure that we were able to communicate these topics to a broad range of people, to talk with climate about them, was one of the key parts of the program. And so it became a key part of the exhibition, as well as thinking about, how do we communicate with the public? And to do that, we can't just rely on engineers. I am an engineer, I can say this. Engineers have many great skills, but it doesn't mean they are great communicators. So we worked with a team at the Oxford University Museum of Natural History who are experts. Just like when we're working on climate, we work with the experts on climate information. When we're working in public communication, we work with the experts on public communication. And so they helped us to communicate the work. And that process, they spoke to researchers from across the program. They read our papers. People don't read academic papers that much. People read our papers, and they created the exhibition to help communicate the work to that different audience. And so now the exhibition has traveled to Manila, and the team here have done a brilliant job of making it relevant to the local audience, producing this amazing game for people to get hands-on and really get a better understanding of some of the water security issues and the challenges of water management, and how these inequalities arise and how we can manage them. And so that this exhibition came about through partnerships. So this is another key part for us in the research, but also more broadly, is how we make change is through partnering with other people, of finding people who have who can make change, but also working closely with different organizations who are making those decisions. So as a researcher, I can do the most amazing piece of research ever, and write a paper, and that might well be where it ends. It's through having these partnerships with different people, having these relationships with people who are making the decisions that will turn that piece of research into a better outcome. So I've already spoken then about using that research to create change. So I wanted to leave you with an example of hope, because as I said, that's what the exhibition was about. So this is, well, if I start with the bad news, the bad news is we have estimates are that there's between 2.2 billion and 4.4 billion people who don't have access to safe drinking water. So that's a lot of people. We think about the engineering side of it. We've known for more than 100 years how to treat water. The challenges that these 4.4 billion people are facing is mostly bacteria in their water. That's the main issue we're talking about here. And we've known how to treat that for 100 years. We have simple technologies, simple filters and chlorine that's been available for a long time. And we've got a whole lot of amazing engineering that can treat all sorts of things these days. But that engineering is not reaching adequately these 4.4 billion people. So why not? What can we do different? And this is where we've been working in Bangladesh on a model which is bringing in professionals to help manage water systems, because most of those people who don't have access to safe water do have access to to a type of an engineered water system. So this is an example from Bangladesh. So the big blue tower in the middle is a piped water network that's been put up, solar system. So that takes water to almost to people's houses. They don't have to walk so far to collect it. There's water at the school, water at the healthcare facility, except that it wasn't working. So it had been allowed to fall into disrepair. The alternative sources people had, there's the hand pump at the bottom left, so people would come and collect water and carry it to their homes, which could be quite far at times. This is in coastal Bangladesh, where a lot of the water is saline, and the water quality can also be poor from a lot of those hand pumps. So there are challenges there. And on the right, the third option is that people pay for water, what we call vended water. They buy water in bottles, and that's delivered, or they can get it closer to their home. But it costs money, and it may be money they don't have a lot of. So people end up with these, not great choices necessarily. They don't get a choice in terms of the water they drink. With our program, Safe Pani, what we did was bring in professional service providers who could repaired this pipe system, for example, and treated it. So they actually tested the water and treated it so that it was safe to drink. And this model, it's one that, it's not a fancy piece of engineering. It's not like I can show a wonderful new test or a new treatment system. It's a change in that institutions, in that model of how we do things, to take it away, that we don't expect people who live in the house to do it. We're happy that someone actually who knows what they're doing, is professional, gets paid to do this. And with that program, so here's just some examples of the work they do in terms of repairing water points, and some of that's also making them more flood-proof, testing the water and treating the water, so that people are getting better outcomes. One of the key things we mentioned earlier is, of course, the financing. And so one of the differences here is that we pay for results-based contracts. So these service providers have to deliver a standard of service before they get paid. But at the end, the financing, the cost of this is much lower than people imagine. So this is $1 per student per year in the schools that we serve, for example. So it's a low cost, but can make a big difference. And we have just a quote here from our teachers. So running water means school is alive, students are active, and teachers are engaged. Everything flows and moves forward with it. So we're seeing that schools really appreciate the difference, and we can deliver safer water to school kids in areas where people thought, this is too hard, they have to do it themselves. You'll be able to demonstrate a different model to allow different model that helps to advance water security more equitably. So just finally, I think the key things we want people to take away from Fair Water and to think about in terms of addressing these inequalities in the sector is firstly inclusion. We need all types of people. We need people who are communication specialists. We need people who are social scientists. We need people who are engineers, of course, and technical experts. But it takes a huge range of people, and we need to work together. So if you're not sure that you're the right person for the water sector, I think we've got a role for you. We'd love to have you. The second point is collaboration. For engineers, it's really easy for us to just focus on talking to other engineers, of going, right, this is fun, this is a technical challenge, we can solve this as engineers. But we need to collaborate with people outside our discipline who are going to challenge us and get us to think differently. And that may be a bit harder, but that's the only way that we'll be able to make sure the engineering we like is available for all. The third point is partnerships, of making sure we're not just working on research, for example, but that researchers are working with practitioners and vice versa. So just because if you're working every day on the immediate things that need to be done, that's really important, but it's also helpful to have those partnerships with academics who have a longer term look, who might look at things a bit differently. And with this, to advance water security, we need to understand and recognize that it's complex, it's going to be hard, it's going to be challenging, and not to be daunted by that complexity, but to lean into it and accept, okay, it's quite a complex issue, but we can find ways forward for this and make change. And lastly, to look for change makers, to look for people who are making decisions where you think you can change that decision, and make sure you're developing a relationship with them so that they can, so they've got the best evidence for when they're making those decisions. So thank you very much for your time. It's been really great to be here today and to share this with you, and I look forward to the discussion. Thanks very much.
Rosmon and I were talking, alam ko, viral na ngayon, di ba? Yung nagpapakasal na naka-gown siya, baha. And tayong mga Pilipino, sasabihin na naman, napaka-creative natin, napaka-resilient natin, no? And we romanticize it, to Rosmon's point. And to me naman, parang, napaka-creative, napaka-resilient talaga ng Pilipino. But there comes a point in time, hindi na to about resiliency, and hindi na nakakatawa. Can you just imagine yung preparation ng couple na yon? Yung paggawa, yung gumawa ng gown, yung pera na inipon ng magulang para magkaroon ng maayos-ayos naman na, na reception. Pagkatapos nun, sira na yung gown, sira na yung sapatos, tas baka hindi natin alam kung ano yung nasa tubig. And yung tubig na yun, baka punong-puno ng kung ano-ano na baka pagkatapos nun, may sakit pa yung couple na hindi makapag-honeymoon. We deserve better, okay? We deserve better. And so, we're all here about not putting blame, but also not making fun anymore of these things and taking it lightly, but really holding people accountable. It's 2025. 2 billion people still don't have access to clean water. Ano ba naman yan? O sige, hindi natin kaya yung 2 billion, pero at least dito sa Pilipinas, and with an organization like Maynilad, and of course, so many people backing you up and wanting to continue the conversation way after these talks are over. I just want you to know that we want to continue the conversations about making sure that there is water for all. Okay? All right. So, Simon, what's the next part of our program? After people have taken their coffee and tubig and all that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Susan, for summarizing the speech of Dr. Katrina Charles. To bring our learnings to a more local context, let us call on Mr. Rosman Toason, Head of Corporate Marketing Department of Maynilad, to give a special message and introduce our next segment.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you, Ms. Susan. And let me see some hands siguro muna. Sino dito ang binaha? Oh, inulan lang, inulan. So I assume marami sa atin ay naka-recover na from the past few days. And thank you for making that effort to be with us today. You know, it is always delight for us to see people who are eager to learn about an agenda as urgent as water, sanitation, and the environment. As what we've seen from our first two video speakers and as shared by Ms. Susan, international conference pala tayo ngayon. This morning, we have experts from UK and India. We have so much work to do. We all know, siguro marami sa atin nakakaalam or na we were able to capture this information, but according to a study by JICA, it's really old. This report needs to be updated. By 2030, so that's 5 years from now, many parts of the world could suffer severe water shortage. And this report was issued, 2 decades ago. And in fact, in many parts of the world, we're beginning to see that it is happening and it can happen unless we do something today. Because, you know, partners, we cannot do the work on our own. We cannot craft solutions on our own. For example, the development sector, including the Ramon Magsaysay Awardee Foundation, ADB, the water organizations, including Maynilad, we might have all these research, all these innovations, but you know, as underscored by Professor Charles earlier, water is not just an engineering problem. It is also a social problem, and often it's also a political problem. As in Maynilad, we've been pursuing innovations like recycling, converting wastewater to potable water. I wish you were able to attend our session 2 weeks ago. We tackled about this. But then there's that important aspect of social acceptance. We need to encourage communities and people to try what we call as new water or potable water coming from wastewater. Wastewater, dirty water coming from our households. So it's a social problem. And another scenario, Maynilad has several programs that specifically target indigent communities. Water is not just a matter of connecting these low-income households to our network. We also problematize if they can afford the services that we provide. So that's another. So we tailor-fit interventions for communities and marginalized groups like this. And we all know that water is connected to maternal health. It's also a question of, we problematize gender issues about water. It's a question of environmental sustainability. Water is connected to to education, to the ability of our youngsters to perform well in class. Kasi laging maraming communities, even outside of established urban centers, yung mga bata, pagkagising sa umaga, kailangan muna umigip ng tubig. They have to walk at least half an hour to the other barangays just to fetch water. So imagine the effort. Imagine the drop in productivity, not only among our school children, but also our mothers, our heads of household. So it's a social political problem. At ito nga, nararamdaman nga natin, medyo trending issue na naman, yung flood control project. So, we have to work at the community level. We have to consider their specific needs. At the same time, we have to go all the way up at the institutions. We have to lobby for robust policies that would allow us to accelerate the implementation of our different water and wastewater programs. So, essentially, water and sanitation, we have to cover all bases. That's why we really appreciate this campaign, Fair Water. We're happy to be part of this campaign, thanks to RMAF, ADB, to Ayala Museo, Oxford University, of course, and our other partners for making us part of this program. Kasi it's a social political problem. We have to engage the public. They have to be part of the solution. They have to appreciate the hardware, all the hardware that we put in place. We have to talk to change makers, policy makers, students like yourselves, educators, sino ba, artists, scientists, economists, as mentioned by Professor Charles. We need to put in place a holistic approach, and we need to engage different stakeholders. Otherwise, all these engineering breakthroughs are doomed to fail. That I can assert. Karen, masaya kami na we're part of this ongoing dialogue on water, sanitation, and the environment. And I really wish that we can keep the discussions going even after this talk. Alam niyo po, sa amin sa Maynilad, we have multiple public advocacy and education initiatives, Taliguno, Talakay Tubig, the numerous trainings offered by Doc Oli of our Water Academy, because we really put premium on these efforts to talk to our different publics. Kaya po, siguro po, I hope you can also find the time to visit our exhibit area at the ground floor. It's themed laying the lines to a water-secure future. So you can learn more about the specific interventions that we have been pursuing for water security. And this supplements, of course, the exhibit set up by Oxford University at the third floor. No? Tama, no? Second floor. Thank you, Simon. So we can get a large pictures of the different efforts to ensure greater access to water and sanitation for all. So, all in all, I pray that we'll have a fruitful, meaningful, and productive learning session today. Mapagpalang umaga po muli sa inyong lahat. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Sir Ross. Our next speaker is Mr. Jonel Rabusa, Shrine Curator 2 at NHCP Historic Sites and Education Division. He manages Museo El Deposito in San Juan City, which highlights the history of Manila's waterworks. He also lectures at the Polytechnic University of the Philippines and serves as a course specialist for its open university system. Mr. Rabusa holds a bachelor's degree in tourism management from PUP and is currently pursuing his master's in international tourism and hospitality management at the same institution. Let's give a round of applause to Sir Jonel.
Okay, so all right. So again, good morning to everyone. I hope you're still with us today. So for today, I'll be discussing on the history not only of Manila's water system, but I will tackle also a part of the Philippine water system as a whole. Para of course we have a very wide understanding of what we are discussing, because we believe if we want to protect and we want to fight for something, we have to understand the whole thing. One thing of understanding it is by learning the past. So before we go to the future, we need to learn the past of our water system. So of course, this is the history of the Philippine water system. All right. Thank you. All right. So ngayon, the Philippines has different ways to get water. Usually, we just open our faucets. But I will start my discussion in the pre-colonial period. One professor from the UP said, Dr. Nestor Castro, if there's one element that could define the Philippine culture, that is water. Because water has already been part of the lives of the Filipinos even before the Spaniards came. As we all know, the Philippines is an archipelago and we are surrounded by different bodies of water. We have the different seas, we are surrounded with oceans, and there are different parts. We have springs, falls, lakes, etc. And so, one of the Spaniards that came in the Philippines, when he came to the Philippines, nakita niya na talagang parte ng buhay ng mga Pilipino ang tubig. So he often records that from the day they were born, these islanders are raised in the water. And so from childhood, both men and women swim like fish and have no need of a bridge to cross rivers. So he also found in his records that most of the Filipinos often take a bath in the different springs from sunrise up to sunset. And usually in the different bahay kubos, you will see a large tapayans where they store water and they clean their feet first before entering the different kubos. So long before the Spaniards came, talagang parte na ng buhay ng mga Pilipino ang tubig. Ayan. So this is a record from Padre Chirino in 1604. Now, the Philippines already has ways of getting water from natural sources. So one of the sources of waters in the Philippines usually springs, lakes, and this one in Batanes, the National Museum found a V2. These are wells, large wells that are usually dated 1500s. So these wells were the source of water of the Batans in that area. So makikita nyo may steps na pababa para they could get down to the lowest part na kahit mababa lang yung tubig, they could get water from the well. And usually, pag maulan, it could store as well rainwater, not just relying from the water coming from the underground. So as early as the 1500s, meron tayong mga records of different water systems already. So this is from Batanes. Ayan. Ayan. Now, when the Spaniards came in the country, of course, the Spaniards was able to hold different lands in the Philippines called the haciendas. So these are the areas under the Spanish priests and friars. So the different orders of the church, Augustinians, Franciscans, they were able to hold these areas and to provide water to these areas, nagsimula sila magtayo ng mga dams in these areas. So, in some parts of Cavite, may mga existing pa ng mga dams, Spanish dams, in some parts of Cavite. Na in the parts of Bacoon, Dasmariñas, na as early as 16 to 1700s pa, bago matayo yung water system ng Manila. So ito mga dams na to, ang pinaka-purpose niya is to provide water to the lands of the haciendas as irrigation. But at the same time, dito na rin kumukuha ng tubig yung mga nasa nayon na nakatira doon sa mga haciendas. Ayan. So I will provide a picture. Ayan. So this is from Mr. E. Sebrano's study. So these are some of the dams that were built in the 1700s in Cavite, in the parts of Bacoon, Dasmariñas, that were built to provide water and irrigation to the different haciendas in Cavite. Ayan po. So ang Filipino term for the dams is prensa. So mag-iba, prensa, pinza, ayan. Ayan, Paudungan and Poton. Yun. So yun yung mga different dams na tinayo during the Spanish period bago pa nagkaroon ng pipeline water system. So yun talaga yung pinaka-way nila to provide water to the rice fields at the same time to provide water to the different nayons and barrios. Ayan. So now, we'll go back to Manila. Now, in Manila, ang pinaka-water source po ng Manila during that time was the Pasig River. Because this is the largest freshwater source in Manila. Other than that, may mga nakita mga lakes and springs in the parts of Manila. Isa sa mga pinaka-kilalang cleanest water source back then in Manila was the springs that were found in the lands of the Dominicans in San Juan del Monte, or now known as San Juan City. So later, mabidiscuss natin kung magkano yung presyo ng tubig na nanggagaling sa mga springs noon ng San Juan del Monte. But, pero yung pinaka-source talaga ng tubig during that time was the Pasig River. Doon lahat ng kuha ng tubig for cleaning purposes, drinking purposes, etc. That's why it was really the life of Manila during that time, the Pasig River. Ayan. So ngayon, wala namang pipeline. So paano na pupunta yung tubig sa mga households? Dati, may matatawag tayong mga agwador. Yung mga agwador, they're the ones that get the water from the water source and then they will deliver it to the different households. Now, paano yung magiging bayaran? Now, the price of water depends on the water source. Pag mas malinis yung water source, mas mahal noon ang tubig. Ang presyo na nakita namin sa records ng tubig na nanggagaling noon sa Pasig River is 2.50 centimos or 2.5 cents. Cents noon ha, hindi yung cents natin ngayon. So malaki yung presyo na yon. Kung ikukumpara natin sa presyo, sa pera natin ngayon, yung 2.50 centimos. Now, pag mas malinis yung tubig, for example, galing yung tubig na kukunin sa mga springs, especially sa mga springs na galing sa may San Juan del Monte, ang presyo niya is 12.50 centimos. That is 12.5 cents. So mas mahal ng 10 sentimo compared sa tubig na nanggagaling sa Ilog Pasig. So minsan nag-iiba pa rin yung presyo ng tubig if the water nag-iba yung presyo ng tubig kapag yung season, kung summer, mas mahal yung tubig. Ayan. So ito yung isang this is one of the illustrations by Jose Novato Lozano of the Aguador. So maliban sa Pasig River, they also get water in the Marikina River. So yun din yung isa sa mga sources nila ng fresh water in the parts of Manila. So kung titignan natin, similar siya sa mga nag-deliver ng tubig sa atin ngayon, ng mineral water. Ayan. So ayan, so tayo nilagay ko siya dyan. So ngayon, magkano ba yung presyo ng mga mineral water? May usually 25, 30, 50, may 55. Ayun. So depende sa kung gaano karami yung i-order nyo. Ayan. So ganun dati yung way nila in order to get fresh water nung wala pang water line or pipeline system. Now, ayan. Ngayon, yung mga mayayaman na pamilya, minsan meron silang matinatawag na alhibe. So what is alhibe? Ito yung mga water cisterns na tinayo sa mga likod or malapit sa mga kusina ng kanilang mga bahay. Ito po yung nagko-kolekta ng rainwater. Kumbaga, pag umulan, yung mga tubig sa bubong, pupunta sa alulod, yung alulod nakakonekta sa alhibe. Ngayon, if you want to see an example of alhibe, you can go to Casa Manila in Intramuros, meron doon. So there is an alhibe. So usually they use talaga rainwater as a water source for drinking and cleaning purposes. At the same time, yung mga mayaman din, may mga kanya-kanyang mga balon or wells. And then sa mga nayon, may mga tinayo din mga wells. Yung Spanish colonial government para doon kumuha ng tubig yung mga mamamayan ng mga baryo. So ito yung isang example. Ayan. Ayan. So ito yung sinasabi kong water source in San Juan back then. Now in San Juan, nakakita sila ng isang spring or bukal sa lupain ng mga Dominicans sa San Juan del Monte, San Juan City. If you're familiar with the area of the Aquinas, Dominican College, Santuario de Santo Cristo, doon po sa area na nakita yung springs. So para po mapadali yung pagkuha ng mga taga Maynila ng tubig doon, gumawa ng simple canal si Padre Juan Peguero in order to connect the spring to a nearby creek para makapasok po yung mga bangka doon sa area, makakuha ng tubig, tapos kung nakakuha ng tubig doon sa spring, isasakay na ulit sa bangka, palabas ng creek, and then palabas na San Juan River connecting to Intramuros. Kasi usually yung kumukuha ng tubig sa may San Juan, these are the churches of the Dominicans in Intramuros. Ayan. So doon sila kumukuha usually ng tubig. Doon sa San Juan, kasi nga mas malinis yung tubig na nanggagaling doon. So imagine medyo ang dami rin ng prosesong pinagdadaanan just to get clean water during that time. Ayan. So this is a plan that we have. This is also displayed in our museum in El Deposito that I will show later. So a church property that is now the area of the Santuario de Santo Cristo in San Juan City. Ngayon, nagkaroon ng problema ang Spanish colonial government at yung mamayan ng Maynila noong panahon yun sapagkat una, hindi na malinis yung nanggagaling na tubig sa Ilog Pasig because of the pollution in the Ilog Pasig. As early as that time, polluted na po ang Ilog Pasig sapagkat lahat po ng gawain ng mga tao, paglalaba, paglilinis, doon ginagawa. And then sadly, wala pang proper sewage system ang Manila during that time. So everything goes to the Pasig River, making it polluted. And because of that, nagkaroon ng epidemya ng cholera sa Maynila noong panahon ng 18th to 19th century. Because of this, Don Francisco Carriedo y Peredo, so he donated 10,000, before he died, he donated 10,000 pesos to the Ayuntamiento de Manila, or the government of Manila, in order to provide clean water, in order to build a water system for Manila. Kasi nga nagiging problema na nila yung maduming tubig. So that's why Don Francisco Carriedo y Peredo on 1733 donated 10,000 pesos. So back then, it was a very huge amount already. But of course, that amount was not enough. That's why they put the fund in a bank to gain interest. At the same time, in order to fund the building of the waterworks system, they added tax in the meat sold in Manila para po madagdagan yung pondo sa pagpapatayo ng water system. So that's why 150 years after the building of the water system, ay nagkaroon na po ng plano sa pagpapagawa ng patubigan. Now, the donation of Carriedo, while gaining interest at habang pinapalaki nila yung pondo, nagkaroon na ng iba't ibang plano on paano gagawin yung waterworks system. 1843, Tomas Cortes suggests to already get water from the parts of Montalban, parang similar sa plan ngayon ng Wawa Dam. As early as Spanish period, may ganun ng plan to get water from the Wawa Dam. But it did not push through because kulang pa yung pondo for the building of the water system at the time. Another thing he suggested, Felipe de la Corte, on the other hand, suggested to get water from the nearest part and the cleanest part of Pasig River. Back then, the cleanest part of Pasig River was the highest part of the Pasig River, which is in the Guadalupe area. Ngayon, so yung area na yun dati, yun sana yung pagkukunan ng malinis na tubig. Kasi yun ang pinakamalapit para hindi masyadong mahal yung pondo na gagamitin for the building of the water system. But still, it did not push through kasi hindi pa rin sapat yung kanilang funds for building the water system. And then eventually, the plan that was made was the plan of Don Genaro Palacios. Genaro Palacios suggests to get water from the highest part of San Mateo River, which is now Marikina River. Kasi, because in their study, they asked a pharmaceutical company to test the water kung saan pwede mas malinis na kumuha. At ang pwede kumuha ng tubig sa Marikina River. So, Genaro Palacios' plan became a reality. Yung po yung plano na ginamit for the building of the water system. Ayan. May kita niyo dyan, may Angat na. As early as the Spanish period, actually, may plano na to build Angat Dam. Kasi Angat Dam was, I think, 1930s, 40s pa nagawa. But actually, may plano na as Spanish period to build a water system in Angat. Hindi lang to natuloy because of the Philippine Revolution. Kasi 1896 ito. Yeah, we'll go back to that later. Ayan. So Don Genaro Palacios was the plan of Don Genaro Palacios was the one chosen by the Spanish government to become the water system of Manila. Now, ang nangyari is water system niya is to get water from Marikina River. Then from Marikina River, they will build a reservoir in the middle of the starting point and the delivery point na tinawag na ng El Deposito na tinayo nila in San Juan. And then from the water reservoir, the water will go down in the different parts of Manila. So by the way, Genaro Palacios was the same one, the head engineer of the building of San Sebastian Church. So before San Sebastian, ang una pong ginawa nila is yung water system. After that, ito na pong San Sebastian. Ayan. Ayan, so this is the plan. So we got this from the National Archives of Spain. So this was the first plan of Genaro Palacios. The original plan, I'm not sure if this is it. So the original plan is to get water from the highest part of Marikina River. And then what they will do is they will connect the water using high Roman aqueducts. Yun yung original plan. Yung parang mga high canals. And then a water reservoir will be built here in San Juan, and then water will flow down in the different parts of Manila. But this plan did not push through because of two things. First, hindi rin kaya ng pondo. Kasi ang pondo for this is 2 million pesos. 2 million during that time, not ngayon. So, sobrang laki nun. Another thing is dahil nga sunod-sunod yung paglindol sa parte ng Maynila, hindi rin advisable to build high Roman aqueducts. That's why they had to change the plan. Ayan. Ayan, so ito yung first plan. So this is the second plan. This is the final plan. So the final plan is to, ginawa nila, instead of getting water from the highest part of San Mateo River, kumuha sila sa pinakamalapit na part ng Marikina River. Ayan. So ito po yung Marikina River. And then they built a pumping station in Santolan para kunin yung water from the river, and the water will be pushed up in San Juan del Monte. And then here you will see El Deposito, or El Deposito de Agua, the water reservoir of Manila. So it became the very heart of the water system. So the reason why they chose San Juan is because of the elevation of San Juan. Mataas kasi ang San Juan. Para madaling bababa yung tubig pagpunta sa Maynila. 15 to 16 meters higher ang San Juan in the entry point of the water system, which is Sampaloc. Eto. So they connected the water system using cast iron pipes. So nakalabas yung tubo from Santolan to El Deposito, and from El Deposito to Manila, nakailalim na siya sa lupa. So yeah, so this is the photo of the former pumping station in Santolan. So these are Cornish type of pumps that was used in order to get water from the river and push the water to El Deposito. So this is the cast iron pipes that was that connected the water from Santolan to El Deposito. Now, so papakita lang namin mga copies ng mga plans, ng mga pumps na ginamit in the building of the water system in Santolan. And so luckily we were able to be given a copy of this from the National Archives of Spain. And then this is the pipeline. Now, may makikita kayong kalsada dito. Ngayon, yung kalsadang to, tinayo to para pag may nasira doon sa tubo, madalis siyang maayos. Yung kalsadang to, ito na yung kilala natin ngayong kalsada na Santolan Road. That's why, yung Santolan Road, kung susundan nyo siya, it will lead you to the former location of the pumping station, which is yung Santolan Pumping Station. So, dire-diretso yun. Yung Quezon City ngayon, yung Bonicinal Road ngayon, dire-diretso Santolan Road to San Juan. Papunta siya ng pinaglabanan siya. Kasi yun po yung location ng dating El Deposito. Ayan. Ayan. So, this is now El Deposito. This is the control area of El Deposito de Agua, or the Cas de Servicio. So, ang El Deposito, ito yung nag-serve na water reservoir or tinggalan ng tubig ng Maynila noong panahon ng mga Kastila. So ito yung Control Center Administrative Office ng El Deposito. And then, ito yung itsura niya. Yung El Depo, may nakapunta na ba dito ng San Juan? Pinaglabanan siya. Yan. So may kita nyo doon, para lang siyang malaking park. Open field. So wala na, nakita nyo, asan yung taguan ng tubig? Nasa ilalim po ng lupa. Underground reservoir po yung ginawa nila dito. So yung area na yun actually, it's a plateau. Tuktok po yun ng burol. Tapos hinukay po nila yung ilalim, binutas po nila to create a reservoir underneath. So ito po yung itsura niya sa ilalim. So it is a series of galleries. So it has a capacity back then of 56,000 cubic meters. That's around 14 to 15 million gallons of water. And then back then, it could supply water to 300,000 people. That was enough back then because the population of Manila was only around 280,000 during that time. So in the records, it takes 2 days to be filled with water. And then they will deliver the water to the different parts of Manila. Ayan. So ito po yung itsura ng pinaglabanan siya ngayon. Yung sa ilalim po niyan, yan po yung taguan ng tubig. Yung po yung underground reservoir. Ayan. So akala ng iba, usually ang dami nag-jogging dyan during morning at afternoon, not knowing na may meron parang reservoir, old Spanish reservoir sa ilalim nila. Ayan. So ito yung itsura niya sa ilalim. If you will notice, yung pinakadulo ng reservoir, kung sa pinaglabanan noon, and ito, aabot siya, if you're familiar with Philo Oil Arena, aabot siya hanggang doon sa area na yun. Sa ilalim. Ito po yun. Ayan. So there are 50 galleries all in all for the whole reservoir to store water. And then ito po yung parang sneak peek sa loob. We already opened it to the public, pero 1/4 pa lang ng total area yung nailaan na pasok natin sa ilalim. So it was the former water reservoir of Manila during the Spanish period. So puno po yan ng tubig dati noong panahon ng Kastila. And then yung opening na to, wala po siya dati. Binutas lang po itong opening na to noong American period. Later, I will tell you why kung bakit siya binutas. And then ito po siya. Sura niya ngayon. Ayan. So these are series of galleries that once stored the water of Manila during the Spanish period. And then it was inaugurated on July 24 of 1882. So in the inauguration of the waterworks system, isang linggo po siyang selebrasyon sa buong Maynila. Sapagkat meron na nga po sila malinis na pagkukunan ng tubig. Sinabay rin po itong week na to sa birth week ng Reina Cristina ng Austria noong panahon yon, which is the Queen Regent of Spain during that time. So this was a picture of the supposedly opening of the water system. Nung binuksan po ang water system, may fountain po na tinayo, which is called the Carriedo Fountain in honor of Don Francisco Carriedo y Peredo. So nakasay na kina LRT, Carriedo Station, sa kanya po pinangalan niya. Ayan. And then at the same time, commemorative coin medal was issued in Manila to celebrate the opening of the waterworks system. And then, may tatlong parts nga yung water system. The source of the water, Marikina River. The water reservoir, which is El Deposito. Now, the outlet of the water, may mga tinayong fountains and hydrants scattered all around Manila to be the water source of the citizens in that area. Ngayon, pinagbasihan nila yung number of hydrants sa bawat lugar depende sa populasyon sa bawat suburbs or arabales ng Maynila. Kumbaga, for example, pag mas maraming populasyon on that area, mas maraming hydrants ilalagay doon. That's why mas maraming nilagay hydrants in the parts of Intramuros, Binondo, and Mita kasi it was the commercial center of Manila during that time. Ayan, so there were 390 fountains and 280 hydrants that were installed. So ano kaibahan ng dalawa? Yung water fountains that was used for clean water to. Ito yung for drinking purposes. Yung hydrants, this is for cleaning purposes. Yung paglinis ng paglalaba, paglinis ng mga kalsada, ito po yun. So pinaghiwalay nila yung for drinking and then yung for cleaning purposes during that time. And then all hydrants, galing pa siya sa England and Scotland, sa UK. Yung mga kinuha nilang cast iron na hydrants sa fountains. And then this is an example of the photo of the water hydrant. Ito po itsura ng mga water hydrant noon. So, if you will visit the museum, you will see one. I think there's also an available hydrant in National Museum. Dalawa siya doon sa may taas, sa may Fine Arts Building. Ayan. So, merong control part sa may gilid and then doon lalabas sa mountain lion yung water to get water. So, this is dated 1920s na ata ito. Ayan. Ayan. So, ngayon, 1882, tinayo po yung Carriada Fountain. The Carriada Fountain was supposed to be the entry point, yung marker ng entry point ng water system doon sa Manila. It was located in Rotonda de Sampaloc. Ito na ngayon yung area ng Nagtahan Interchange. Yung malapit sa may SM Nagtahan. Yung kalsada doon dati, may rotonda doon. May fountain doon dati, ito po yung fountain na yun. And then 1970s, minove po yung fountain, yung centerpiece na lang, from Manila in Quezon City sa tapat ng MWSS building. So doon na po nilagay yung fountain. Pero on 1987, the fountain was requested back to Manila, but this time hindi na siya nilagay doon sa original location sa Rotonda de Sampaloc, pero nilagay na siya sa bago niyang area ngayon sa may Plaza Santa Cruz, sa tapat ng Santa Cruz Church. So makikita niyo pa rin doon ngayon yung fountain. Ngayon, paano na-move yung fountain? Paano nila na-move ng mabilis? Kasi po, cast iron lang naman po ito. Akala po nila kasi semento, but actually this is cast iron. And then nahati siya into two parts na disassemble siya. Ayan. So kaya mabilis po nila na move yung fountain from one place to another. Ngayon, kung pupunta kayo sa MWSS building, may makita pa na kayong Carriada Fountain. According to architect Gerald Lico, that fountain was a replica made by the national artist na Pula na Pulpa para hindi maging empty yung area na yun sa tapat ng MWSS building. That's why nagpagawa sila ng replica yun. Ayan. So, makikita nyo, bakit may revolution dyan? Ano ba connection ng tubig sa revolution? Will you believe me if I tell you that it was water that ignited the Philippine Revolution? Bakit? 1896, it was the start of the revolution. Na-discover na nga ang katipunan at nagsimula na nga pagpaplano ng katipunan para sa kalayaan ng Pilipinas. Now, the group of Andres Bonifacio wanted to start the revolution in San Juan del Monte. Pero bakit San Juan? Because in San Juan, there are two important areas. First one is the El Almacen de Pulbura, or also known as El Pulburin, the gunpowder depot and armory of the Spaniards. The second one is El Deposito de Agua, the water reservoir. Because Bonifacio wanted to control the water system of Manila that supplies water to the very capital, the Intramuros. Because for him, he who controls the water controls the power. Kung makapag-negotiate niya yung mga Kastila, maaaring mapalanunan nila ang revolution by controlling the water system. So that's why they attacked El Deposito on August 30 of 1886. This is called the Battle of San Juan del Monte, also known as the first battle of the Filipinos against Spain during that time. So it was the first part of the Philippine Revolution against Spain. But sadly, they did not succeed in taking over El Deposito because the Spaniards heavily guarded El Deposito. They called back up in Santolan para maprotektahan lamang ang patubigan ng Maynilad. Because mahihirapan sila pag mawawalan sila ng tubig, especially during that time na kumakalat ang sakit na cholera. That's why they heavily guarded El Deposito and natalo yung pwersa ng mga Katipuneros. But even so, it sparked different revolutions in different parts of the country. Nang dahil sa laban ng to, nagkaroon ng pag-aalsa sa iba't ibang probinsya ng Pilipinas at yung mga probinsyang yun na po yung makikita natin sa 8 sinag ng araw ng bandila ng Pilipinas. So it is water that ignited the Philippine Revolution in this part. Now, Philippine independence, they were able to control El Deposito but only for a short time because the Americans came in. When Americans came in, the first thing that they controlled is the water system. That's why they controlled the areas of San Juan and Santolan in order to control the water system of Manila. Ginawa nilang base yung El Deposito, yung ibabaw. So ito yung picture ng mga Americans that they used the El Deposito as headquarters during the Philippine-American War. So ginamit po ng mga Amerikano El Deposito for a long period din as a water source. Ayan. So sabi ko na, he who controls the water controls the power. So these are a picture of the Americans stationed in the parts of El Deposito. So makikita nyo may mga puti. Ito po yung mga air vents ng El Deposito to keep the water fresh underneath sa reservoir. And then, nung pumunta yung mga Americans, nakita nila medyo kulang na rin yung water supply ng Manila kasi lumalaki na yung populasyon ng Manila. That's why they have to build other dams and water sources. That's why on 1909, So 1909, they built Wawa Dam. And then when they built 1909 the Wawa Dam, tinatag yung Metropolitan Water District. So it was the one that controlled the different water systems of Manila in parts of the Philippines. Now, noong tinayo yung Wawa Dam, yung El Deposito and the Carriedo water system, it is still in use, pero secondary water source na lang siya. Kasi nagtayo na rin ng Lamesa Dam, and then nagtayo sila ng bagong reservoir in Manila, which is the San Juan Reservoir near Robinsons sa may barangay Horseshoe, ngayon sa Quezon City. Yung po yung tinayo nilang bagong reservoir ng San Juan. So nagkaroon ng dalawang reservoir ang San Juan noon. And then eventually, El Deposito was decommissioned. Hindi na siya ginamit as a water reservoir. 1930s, tinanggal po yung tubig sa loob ng sa ilalim ng El Deposito. Kaya nakita nyo may butas sa gilid. In order to get rid of the water inside, and they turned it into an armory. That's why from a water zone, it became a war zone. So, from 1930s, naging base siya ng mga Americans, and when the then the Japanese came, sinakop din po ng mga Hapon ang ilalim ng El Deposito para maging imbakan ng mga armas. Yan, so World War II began. So El Deposito became a silent witness of the Philippine Revolution against Spain, Philippine-American War, Japanese occupation, World War II. And then, eventually po, nakalimutan na po ang El Deposito ng panahon during that time. Hindi na po siya ginamit as a water source, and then nagkaroon na nga ng bagong water system ang Manila. And then, during that time, in order to provide water in the different rural areas of Manila, this is now 1954. Ayan. So, sinabi ko kanina, nagkaroon ng Metropolitan Water District Philippines na nagkokontrol ng mga water systems. Pero usually, focus lang siya on Manila. Ngayon, nung after war, nagkaroon din sila ng problema in providing water in the rural areas of the Philippines. So, 1954, during the time of President Ramon Magsaysay, he wanted to provide water on the water system. That's why he built the Liberty Wells Association that will provide funding for the building of the different jetmatic pumps in the different rural areas. Kaya may mapansin nyo sa mga probinsya, maraming mga poso. Kasi nga, nag-start yun noong 1950s. Ayan. And then eventually, ayan, 1955, nabuo po ang NAWASA. So I think naririnig niyo yung term na NAWASA ngayon. So that was the first government agency that controlled the water system of the Philippines. In the 1970s, nahati siyang dalawa. May MWSS and DUA. MWSS controlled parts of Mega Manila. And then DUA is from the other provinces. Ayan. So 1995, pinagtupad yung National Water Act crisis. And then, because of that, nagkaroon ng partnership ang public and private sector. That's why nagkaroon ng concessionaires ang Manila. Dati kasi ang nagkocontrol ng water system is the government. But eventually, during the 90s, nagpatupad nga po na the privatization of some of the distributions of the water system in Manila. That's why nahati po ang Manila in E-zone and West zone. At isa sa mga nag-control ng concessionaires dito nga sa Manila is kasama natin ngayon, Team Maynilad. Ayan. So this is 1987. Ayan. So that's the end of my presentation. For a quick background of the Philippine water system. Ayan. So if you have any questions later, feel free to ask. And then you can visit our museum in San Juan City. This is Museo El Deposito that talks about the history of the water system in general. So yeah, so entrance is free. So pwede kayo pumunta sa may pinaglabanan ni Memorial Shrine. Alright? Ayan, so that's our contact details. And that's it. Thank you for listening, everyone. Hoping for your questions here.
Helping us understand more about the history of water systems in Manila. Our next few speakers from Team Maynilad will situate us in the present day. Engineer Jeffrey Eustaquio will take us through water demand management in the metro, while Ms. Renson Gloriani will take us through water loss and needs. Unfortunately, Engineer Jeff and Ms. Renz cannot join us today, but they have prepared a couple slides for us.
Hello to all participants. May I greet each and every one of you a pleasant morning. And our topic for today is about water demand management. But before that, please let me briefly introduce to you of who Maynilad is. Maynilad is the largest water utility company here in the Philippines in terms of customer base, with 1.5 million accounts, serving approximately 10 million people in the West Concession area. Or should we say the west part of Metro Manila up to Cavite area. This covers 17 cities and municipalities with a total pipelines of 7,000 kilometers. And that is Maynilad. So now, let's go back to our main topic. What do you see, or can someone tell me what can you see in each of these photos? As you can see, people are lining up, waiting for their turn to fetch water. And our sources are gradually decreasing. One of the biggest challenges of water utility is the growing population, when the available water supply remains limited and unchanged. This leads to water scarcity. Most of us have been told to save water or to consume what is only needed. But how can we really address this kind of problem? One of which is this water management strategy, the 3R: reduce, reuse, recycle. This only means that we should use our water wisely. Here are the 4 major solutions to address water scarcity. First is water management. Second is water recycling. Third is water efficiency. And fourth, water stewardship. But how do these terms differ from each other? Water management ensures that the water is used efficiently across all sectors to meet today's needs without harming the future water supply. Water recycling, from the word recycling, by utilizing the treated wastewater for non-potable applications. The third one, water efficiency, by adapting or using efficient water fixtures or systems and proper habit to cut down water waste. And lastly, water stewardship. This means by being responsible in using water. Among these 4, water efficiency and water stewardship are what we can use to contribute as an individual to address water scarcity. And the remaining 2, as part of water utility, this is our responsibility: water management and water recycling. In relation to this, allow me to share with you what Maynilad does to ensure available water supply. Back in 2007, our water loss was at 66%. Imagine if we are producing 100% of the water, ang natatapon po doon ay 66%. Meaning, ang umaabot lang sa ating mga customers ay 34%. But in 2024, through water loss management, we reduced it to 39%. This was made possible through these programs, one of which is the active leakage control, wherein we proactively locating visible and non-visible leaks or the underground leaks. Second is the speed and quality of repairs. We ensure that the leaks are repaired immediately without compromising the quality of workmanship to avoid recurrence. Pressure management and asset management. This helps us to improve the water distribution system. Integrated meter management. We ensure that the water meters are tested and accurate as we value the interest of our customers. And lastly, water theft control. This means that we are locating, finding, and cutting down illegal connections. So, these are the programs to address water supply management as part of the company's operational efficiency. Now that we have learned about water loss management, as an individual, what can you do in order to manage water demand? Please let me share these photos to you. Madalas natin itong nakikita sa mga commercial establishments, yung dual flush toilets. So, would you know how to use these flushes? Here's how. So, meron tayong dalawa, the large button and the small button. For the large one, it is used for solid waste. And the small one is used for the liquid waste. When we say the solid waste, ito yung mga poops natin. So, how about this kind of fixture? So, these fixtures are called flush-o-meters. So, ito yung mga toilets naman na madalas natin nakikita sa mga malalaking establishments. Like sa mga malls, gano'n. So, alam nyo ba kung paano natin ginagamit ito? Here's how. When you press upward, it flushes the liquid waste. And downward is for solid waste. Maybe you're wondering on how to determine the efficiency of the fixtures based on the maximum water use. Meron kasi tayong international and local efficiency, water efficiency ratings or standards to determine if the fixture is efficient or not. In the Philippine setting, our reference is the Philippine Green Building Code as part of the National Building Code of the Philippines. So, pwede natin gawing basis yung maximum flow rate na nakalagay dito or naka-indicate dito to check the efficiency or for us to be able to determine the efficiency of the water fixtures. But for the sensor-activated type fixture, no efficiency rating is determined since it depends on how long someone is using it. Okay? So what else can we do as an individual? So by providing constant reminders to keep everyone informed on how to conserve water. Also, we can use our water bill or we can track by using our water bill for any signs of unusually high consumptions. Pwede rin gamitin natin yung ating mga water meters to help us to detect if we have leaks inside our home or inside our house premises. Here's how. First, close all the water fixtures and ensure that no one is using water. Then check if the meter is rotating or not. Meron kasi tayo doon sa gitna ng ating water meters na kulay black na parang wheel. Ito yung leak indicator doon sa ating mga water meters. Once na umiikot ito, this means that you have leaks inside your house premises. So that's the time you need to investigate and make the necessary repairs. But if not, edi mas okay. Wala tayong iisipin na problema. Okay? So, to end my presentation, I would like to impart to you these statements. So please remember and follow the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. And sustainable water management is vital in conserving and protecting water.
What are the effects of having high water loss in our communities? Number 1, water shortages. Or maybe, ito yung sinasabi natin, kakulangan ng tubig sa ating community. Health risks, of course, inadequate water can lead for sanitation. Dito na nagkakaroon ng mga iba't ibang uri ng sakit sa ating communities. Reduced pressure, once na nagkaroon ng reduced pressure sa community, makaka-experience sila ng inadequate supply ng tubig. Social impact, having a high water loss can disrupt our daily lives, affecting our business, schools, hospitals, and other institutions. For the environmental impact, of course, depleting our water sources or our natural resources. Now, the question is, how are we addressing water loss? In Maynilad, we have already several programs in place. We have leak detection and repair, meter management, infrastructure improvement, policy regulatory measures, and of course, we have community awareness and engagement. Leak detections and repair. Of course, we need find and locate leaks and repair them as quickly as possible. Ito yung mga itsura, na example, ng mga water leaks sa ating komunidad. The first one, the physical damage by the third-party contractors. The second one, the street leaks. How about this one? Meron ba itong leaks? Ano yung nakikita ninyo? Malinis yung surface, no? Sabi nga na isang famous line sa isang Filipino movie, akala mo lang wala, pero meron. No? There's a leak underneath, no? Ito yung tinatawag naming underground leaks, no? Na kinakailangan din nating pagtuunan ng pansin. Kasi, sabi nga natin, akala lang natin walang leak sa ibabaw, pero meron patuloy na natapong tubig at nasasayang. For the meter management, upgrading and maintaining water meters can improve accuracy and reduce water loss. Now, for the infrastructure and improvement, over the years, extensive rehabilitation has been undertaken to modernize the aging infrastructure. At Maynilad, we've launched various channels to encourage our customers and even our employees to report any leaks they see in their community. We have our hotlines, social media platforms, our QR codes posted in communities like Barangay Hall, HOA offices, all over Maynilad areas. You can visit our Maynilad Facebook accounts, sharing informational materials, tips, guidelines on how to prevent water loss, and even promoting water conservation. Makiisa, makialam, magmalasakit, mahalaga ang tulong ng bawat isa. Let's make it happen. A shared understanding of a common goals and objective is essential for effective collaboration with the stakeholders. Together, we can foster a community where people lead healthier and more comfortable lives. Our vision, a water security community for generations to come. Maginhawang umaga.
Thank you, Engineer Jeff and Ms. Renz, for preparing the presentation for us. To wrap up our day, let us have on stage Mr. Oliver Santana of Maynilad Water Academy, who will talk about water education and the importance of educating young engineers and partners about water systems and maintenance in Manila. Unfortunately, due to our time constraint, we will not be having our open forum anymore. However, we encourage everyone to stick around and converse with our speakers and engage with the exhibits of Maynilad and Fairwater Manila in the first and second floor. Sir Oliver?
Thank you, Simon. Pakita muna natin si Chubby. Kamusta po maghihawang araw sa inyo? So we have this Chubby. This is our official mascot and a plush toy made by a cooperative that's being supported by Maynilad. And I told Rosmond, perhaps we can give a prize to the early birds. And then I was informed that the early birds came from NU Fairview. But we only have one. So You're going to raffle this among yourselves. Okay. Visit the booth, baka mas higher chances of winning. But later, we'll have a picture. Okay, maginhawang araw po sa inyong lahat. I'm given 2 minutes to talk about water education. And am I going to share my presentation? Siguro lang some parts of that. No? Maynilad Water Academy was established in 2011 with the intention to help or train professionals in the water sector. But we realized that it's not enough to train professionals. We have to cascade water education down to the youngest generation because they will be the next generation. That's why our approach when it comes to water education, it is developmental and progressive. Okay. So, yeah. I'd like to pose this question. Kasi we're talking about stories. And if you know every story about a water drop, how would you handle the responsibility of having knowledge about water? And how are you going to share this to make an impact to the lives of people around you? Okay, so water education is important. When we talk about education, this is about teaching minds, touching hearts, transforming lives. Cliché as it may sound, but if you're aware of the importance of water, from source to distribution to wastewater and how you make use of that, then you have second thoughts on how you're going to use it responsibly. And that's why we're coming up with conversations like this so that people will become aware of its importance. Sometimes, what you do not know, you tend to ignore. And that's why there's a need for awareness to come up with solutions to the challenges that we're expecting or experiencing. Notice also that we invited NHCP, National Historical Commission, and linking that with water. Why? Because, to know the past will enable us to understand the present and we'll be able to predict the future. If you notice, the problems that we have right now have been lingering, for the longest time. And we need to reframe our thoughts when it comes to coming up with solutions. That's why, our approach is it's learner-centered. We try to contextualize it according to the age of our learners. And then it's also interdisciplinary, meaning to say it's not biased towards one discipline. We need the help, collaboration of all disciplines. And also, it should be action-driven. Like after attending our events, there should be a call to action. What should I do now? Where do I go next? Okay. And I'd like to amplify this. We partnered with UP NISMED, or National Institute for Science and Mathematics Education, and UNESCO. This was created in 2015. And notice that there are 15 modules talking about water as nature's precious gift. So from source, treatment, distribution, wastewater, name it, it's there. And it is age-appropriate, competency-based, and DepEd approved because it has been reviewed by the Bureau of Curriculum and Instructions, and it's practical and easy to implement. So who among you would like to have a copy of this? Okay. So ayan po, it's already uploaded in the learning portal. It's free, the learning portal of DepEd. You can also scan the QR code and you'll have an access to the 15 modules. Again, for free. Ayan. Diba? Alam niyo po, 2015, we gave it to DepEd and it was only in February of this year that it was uploaded thanks to Secretary Angara, who signed and pushed for it and approved the uploading of this knowledge content in their learning portal. Okay. We also have Water Camp. It's an immersion program. Again, it's developmental. It's an immersion program about water source, treatment, distribution, and wastewater so that they have a better understanding of how water supply works. So from kindergarten to junior high school and also for teachers. Okay. And we realize that it's not enough that we focus our attention to STEM. We value social sciences. That's why we came up with Ugnayang Tubig at Kasaysayan. O narinig nyo naman, di ba, kay Sir Jonel, na ang tubig ang pinagsimulan ng revolusyon. Pero yung revolusyon na meron tayo ngayon, it's about finding equity, no? Social justice when it comes to water supply, waterborne disease, dealing with waterborne diseases, and ensuring that there's a sustainable supply for everyone. Okay, ano pa? We also have programs for faculty members. That's what we call the Faculty Learning Exchange on Water Education. Here we have a dialogue conversation about potential research topics where faculty and students can engage themselves in when it comes to issues about water and sanitation. Okay. And if you want, we can also visit your campus and come up with an exhibit similar to this one, and we call this one West Fair. Why West Fair? Practically, Maynilad is in the West Concession area. Okay, so that's why we call it West Fair. And what else? Inclusive and approach. So we have programs for women, for persons with disabilities, and for young leaders. To know more about this, feel free to contact us and then I'll share more about this program. No? And what else? Another area of interest is that we can also partner when it comes to doing research. We can provide technical assistance. We have the expertise, you have the knowledge. Let's bridge theory and academe. No? And when we do that, we want the communities to benefit from the knowledge that will be generated between the academe and industry. So, okay, conferences and exhibits. We also do water operators partnerships. Again, it all starts with conversations like this one. Okay. And I really appreciate those whom I invited and they exerted effort and their time to attend. Palakpakan niyo po yung inyong mga sarili. Because that means you're also concerned and interested with the state of our water affairs. No? And then, of course, with the partnerships, we hope that it would not end up as planned. No, puro plano lang. We wanted to come up with an action that would make a difference or an impact in the lives of people. So with that, water education, water education should flow, should not stagnate. And we hope that with the knowledge that we have learned and generated, this will enable us to inspire action to make a change. So maraming salamat. I hope I was able to synthesize everything in that span of time. Okay. Simon, back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sir Oliver, for that lovely presentation. I know that we have many students today, and I know many people have questions for our speakers. So we will entertain only two. Anybody would like to ask a question, you can raise your hand, and our ushers will approach you with the microphone.
Questions?
To any of the speakers, Sir Jonel or Sir Oli. We also have members from our leak management department who can answer questions. Sir Oli, would you like to?
Yeah, may I invite my colleagues from the water sector to join me here in front to answer questions. Sir Jonel and from the NRW team, where's Bernard and your... please join me here in front. And of course, Rosbon also. Question?
Hello po. I'm Mike from National University Fairview Campus po. May question lang po. Ano po yung mga, para sa karagdagang knowledge lang po, ano po yung mga pinaka-main source po natin ng water sa Metro Manila po?
Right now, more than 90% of Metro Manila's water is coming from Angat Dam. So it's the Angat, Ipo, Lamesa watershed system. Pero right now, kasi nga medyo nagkakaproblema tayo, we have to anticipate na due to climate change, some operational difficulties, talagang dumarating sa punto na kinukulang tayo ng tubig, lalo na pag tag-init, El Nino, La Nina. Kaya in the past few years, we've implemented initiatives to harness more sources of water. Kaya in the last 10 years, we have begun to tap Laguna Lake in the south as additional water supply. We have begun converting wastewater to potable water, what I've shared before. We have activated mobile treatment plants and other portable facilities so we can augment our supply. And so far, I think we're managing pretty well in terms of supply. So those are our main sources of water.
And follow-up question lang din po. Kino-consider niyo rin po ba na yung ocean po natin is maging another main source of water po natin?
Actually, meron naman na talagang system na gano'n, which is yung reverse osmosis siya tayo. The problem is medyo mahal lang talaga kasi yung ginagamit na filtration for that. So, nag-ano yung ibang possibility talaga. Lahat naman, si Maynilad is nag-check talaga ng iba't ibang possible way to conserve. Ayun nga, ang mas goal natin is to conserve pa yung kung ano yung meron tayo ngayon. So, since limited lang talaga ang supply, so in-urge natin lahat, each every one of us to manage and conserve water wells.
Thank you.
Thank you. We can have one more. Yes.
I'm Chris from St. Teresa's College, Quezon City. What's your stand regarding this issue of the Kaliwa Dam as being a project for compensating yung water scarcity natin, but at the same time creating some disasters or havoc or problems to our indigenous peoples?
It's really a sensitive, a controversial question, no? And a sensitive issue for us. But definitely, with the state that we are in right now, we need large, sustainable sources of additional supply. It might come from Kaliwa Dam, that's the most viable right now. It might come from other sources. That's why, actually, the sources I mentioned, they're pretty low volume, relatively. Kaliwa Dam is the future for Metro Manila. But at the same time, we acknowledge that I shared earlier that water is a socio-political problem. We are cognizant of the need to respect the rights of our indigenous brothers and sisters. They've been living there for ages, even before we came in. That's why we have working with the local government units of different Rizal provinces. We have set out to implement different social, economic, and development programs, especially targeting these communities that might be impacted by the Kaliwa Dam project. So it's an ongoing program for us. But definitely, we need Kaliwa Dam, and it's a balancing act, to be honest, for us. We understand the social implications, the environmental impact, but like any other large-scale water projects, it's a balancing act for us. That's why we need to engage communities and local governments closely in order for this to succeed.
So that means to say there's no point of these people doing some rallies against the continuous development of the Kaliwa Dam.
Actually, we're listening to them. From stage 1 to stage 10, we have to understand where they're coming from. We continue to listen to their needs. Like what I said, we continue to tailor fit different interventions in order for us that would allow us to respond to their particular needs. So these rallies matter. These dialogues matter because we welcome all channels for us to extract the sentiments, the position of different stakeholders, especially in these communities. Was I able to answer the question?
We're looking forward to some positive impacts that this will see on our indigenous peoples in Southern. All people will be affected by that.
Yes, we're looking forward to that as well.
That's great. And you know what? Talking about indigenous people, I'm a Sarasian, by the way, so I'm so happy that you're here. Please, I'm inviting all of you. We have the first National Indigenous Young Leadership Congress at the Ramon Magsaysay Center on
August 7 to 9.
September 7, not September, August
7 to 9.
7 to 9. August 7 to 9. Can you imagine all these young people from indigenous communities for the first time will all be together at the center? So we will have all kinds of food, mga iba-ibang booths, and an opportunity to talk to them and to get their insights. So I hope to see most of you there. Okay? All right.
Thank you.
Saglit lang, dagdag ko lang. Speaking of indigenous people, let me cite a concrete sample of an intervention. Right now, Maynilad is we've been working with the indigenous Dumagat tribe of Ipo watershed. So, they are a major partner for our massive reforestation program in Ipo and Angat watershed. At the same time, our social enterprise in Ipo, with most of the participants are actually Dumagat heads of households. They are an active partner, even for livelihood programs like this. So you see, at the same time, we do a lot of hygiene education programs, water access programs that benefit specifically the Dumagat tribe of Ipo and Angat watershed. And it's something we intend to replicate moving forward in areas affected by Kaliwada.
Thank you for the questions and the insights. Unfortunately, we are pressed for time at the moment. Please stick around so that you can converse with our speakers and our other professionals here today.